Good evening, and welcome. As the world outside begins to quiet its busy hum, and shadows lengthen into the soft embrace of evening, I invite you to settle into a space of comfort and stillness. This journey is crafted for your peace, for your relaxation, and for the gentle drift into restorative sleep. There is no need to remain awake. Indeed, drifting off at any moment is precisely the intention. Simply close your eyes, breathe deeply, and allow these words to carry you away from the present, back through the mists of time, to a place where stillness was a way of life. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing at the edge of a medieval landscape, just as the last amber glow of a setting sun begins to recede from the western sky. The air, crisp and clear, carries the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke, a subtle promise of the cool night to come. The long, slender fingers of twilight are reaching across fields and through ancient forests, painting the world in shades of deepening violet and soft grey. Listen closely. Can you hear the final chorus of the day? Perhaps the distant bleating of sheep being penned, the last call of a crow winging its way to roost, or the soft, rustling whisper of the wind through bare branches. These are the sounds of a world preparing for slumber, a world without electric light or constant noise, a world where the rhythms of nature dictated the passage of time. Ahead of you, rising from the landscape like a silent sentinel, stands a monastery. Its sturdy, ancient stone walls, weathered by centuries of sun and rain, seem to absorb the fading light, holding on to the day's warmth with stoic resilience. The heavy, oaken gate, now surely barred against the encroaching night and any wildness that might stir in the darkness beyond, suggests an inner world of peace and protection. Feel the cool air on your skin, a gentle reminder of the cold that will soon descend, wrapping the world in its icy embrace. But within those walls, there is a different kind of warmth, a different kind of light, sustained not just by hearths, but by a quiet, enduring spirit. Picture the scene within the cloistered garth, the inner courtyard of the monastery. Perhaps a lone, gnarled tree stands at its center, its branches now stark against the darkening sky. The carefully tended herb garden, with its neat rows of medicinal plants and culinary delights, is becoming indistinct in the gloom, its familiar scents, rosemary, thyme, perhaps the fainter notes of lavender, mingling with the cool, damp breath of the stone walkways. The cloister walk itself, an arcaded passage surrounding the garth, offers shelter from the elements, its vaulted ceilings echoing with the memory of countless footsteps, countless prayers. For centuries, this space has been a sanctuary, a place where the world's clamor was muted, and the inner life was nurtured. As darkness deepens, the first stars begin to prick the velvet canopy above, tiny diamonds against the infinite black. The moon, perhaps a crescent sliver or a full, luminous orb, casts long, dancing shadows through the arched windows of the chapter house and the refectory. Imagine a faint glow now emanating from within the monastery walls, not the harsh glare of modern light, but the soft, wavering flicker of beeswax candles. Each tiny flame, carefully lit, pushes back the vastness of the medieval night, creating pockets of intimate warmth and gentle illumination. These are the beacons guiding the monks through their evening rituals, through their quiet preparation for a night of rest, and for the fragmented slumber that punctuated their sacred vigils. There's a sense of profound stillness settling over the entire complex. The day's labors are done, the tools laid aside, the livestock settled in their pens. The air itself feels heavy with the quiet anticipation of night. You might catch the subtle scent of old parchment and wood, perhaps the faintest hint of incense from the chapel, carried on a stray draught of air. The sounds now are those of a building settling, the gentle creak of ancient timbers, the soft sigh of the wind finding its way through narrow openings, and perhaps, if you listen very, very closely, the distant, murmuring tones of plainsong, a calming chant echoing from the chapel, a final prayer before the deepest hours of the night descend. This is the threshold we now cross, together. We step away from the noise and demands of the present, into a world where time moved at a different pace, dictated by the sun, the moon, and the solemn peal of a bell. We are entering a place of quiet discipline, of profound simplicity, and of an unwavering commitment to a spiritual life lived in harmony with the natural world. Allow yourself to be drawn into this ancient rhythm, to feel the comfort of its enduring silence, to absorb the peacefulness that permeates its very stones. Let the stillness of this imagined monastery gently enfold you, preparing your mind and body for a night of deep, undisturbed rest. All is calm, all is safe, and all is quiet. As the soft cloak of evening deepens, we gently follow the spectral echoes of sandal-clad feet through the quiet corridors of a medieval monastery. The last whispers of communal prayer have faded, and the day's arduous labor is done. Now, a different kind of quiet descends, a hush that invites weary bodies and souls to seek a few hours of restorative rest. Imagine, if you will, stepping through a heavy, oak door, its iron hinges perhaps letting out a faint, mournful creak, into the heart of the monastic sleeping quarters, the dormitory. This is not a private chamber, carved out for individual comfort, but a communal space, a testament to the shared life and vows of poverty and obedience. Picture a long, rectangular room, stretching out before you in the dim light. The air inside is still, carrying the faint, earthy scent of damp stone and old wood, perhaps a hint of beeswax from the last lamp extinguished. The walls, thick and unyielding, are of roughly hewn stone, grey and formidable, designed to withstand not only the passage of centuries but also the relentless chill of winter. Above, a high-beamed ceiling disappears into shadow, vast and cavernous. Along the length of these formidable walls, you would observe a series of simple beds, arranged in orderly rows. These are not the soft, luxurious beds we know today. Each is a narrow, wooden frame, sturdy and functional, holding a mattress filled not with down or cotton, but with straw or dried rushes. Feel, for a moment, the imagined texture of that straw beneath your hand, firm, rustic, rustling softly with every shift of weight. It offers a meager buffer against the cold stone floor, a practical and humble provision for rest. Above each bed, perhaps a small, rough wooden cross is affixed to the wall, a constant, silent reminder of their devotion even in sleep. The light here is sparse, almost non-existent once the last monk has settled. Perhaps a sliver of moonlight filters through a high, narrow window, painting a pale rectangle on the stone floor, or the last embers of a distant communal hearth cast a wavering, orange glow that barely reaches this far. In such profound darkness, other senses heighten. Listen closely now, beyond the gentle rhythm of your own breath. Can you detect the faint, almost imperceptible sounds that fill this shared silence? The distant hoot of an owl from the monastery grounds, carried on a cold gust of wind that whispers at the sturdy window frames. Perhaps the gentle, even breathing of a dozen or more sleeping men, a collective sigh of humanity in repose. The occasional creak of an ancient timber settling, or the soft rustle of straw as one monk turns in his sleep. These are the subtle lullabies of the medieval night, woven into the fabric of the monastery's slumber. The cold is a constant companion within these stone walls, a pervasive presence that no amount of prayer or simple bedding can entirely banish. Imagine the chill seeping into the very bones of the building, making the air sharp and crisp, especially in the deepest hours before dawn. Monks would lie beneath coarse wool blankets, perhaps one or two, scratchy against the skin, offering a modest warmth. They often slept in some of their day clothes, simple tunics and cowls, adding another thin layer of protection against the biting cold. There are no warming pans here, no roaring fires in individual hearths. The warmth must be generated from within, or shared in the close proximity of fellow sleepers, a silent, unspoken solidarity against the elements. This shared silence is not merely an absence of noise, but a deliberate practice, a part of their vows. Monks were expected to maintain a profound quiet, even in the dormitory. Conversations were forbidden, even unnecessary movements were discouraged. This was a space for reflection, for the soul to turn inward, even as the body sought respite. It instilled a sense of profound peace, a collective surrender to the night, broken only by the inevitable stirring for the nocturnal offices, which would beckon them from their brief slumbers. Feel the quiet dignity of this humble space, the unadorned simplicity that speaks volumes about a life dedicated to spiritual pursuits rather than earthly comforts. There is a strange, comforting honesty in its austerity. The lack of material warmth compels a different kind of warmth, the warmth of shared purpose, of communal endurance. As the night deepens, and the cold air circulates through this ancient chamber, the monks drift into a fitful, yet necessary, sleep, their bodies preparing for the early morning calls to prayer. Let the image of this quiet, stone-walled dormitory settle within you, a space of profound peace and shared, silent slumber, as you too begin to feel the gentle pull towards your own deep rest. The profound stillness of the dormitory, so recently embraced, is not destined to last. Listen for a moment, beyond the gentle whisper of the wind against the stone and the distant hoot of an owl. Can you hear it? A low, resonant thrum begins to vibrate through the very fabric of the monastery, a deep, slow *dong* that echoes not just through the cold corridors but deep into the very core of a slumbering monk. This is the rhythmic bell, the persistent, unyielding voice of the monastic day and night, puncturing the darkness with its solemn call. It is the summons for vigils, or matins, often ringing out in the deepest, coldest hours of the night, perhaps as early as 2 or 3 in the morning. Imagine the sudden jolt, not a harsh, alarming sound, but one that permeates sleep with an insistent authority. The bell tolls again, a deep, bronze heart beating for the spiritual life of the community. In the profound cold of the dormitory, where the air itself seems to crystallize, a monk stirs beneath his coarse wool blanket. His breath, visible for a moment in the frigid air, mists and vanishes. The body yearns for the deep, unbroken oblivion of sleep, but the soul answers to a higher call. This is the ancient rhythm, the pulse of Benedictine life, demanding wakefulness when the world outside is deepest in its slumber. You might wonder about sleep in such a fragmented existence. In medieval times, before the strictures of the industrial clock, many people experienced what historians now call first sleep and second sleep. They would retire shortly after dusk, sleep for a few hours, wake for an hour or two, perhaps to stoke a fire, tend to an infant, or simply to meditate, and then return to bed for a second sleep until dawn. For the monks, this natural pattern was interwoven with the demands of their spiritual office. They might achieve a precious few hours of first sleep after Compline, sinking into the heavy oblivion born of hard work and physical exhaustion. But then, the bell would ring. The first summons is a test of discipline. The rough fabric of the habit, worn even to bed, rubs against skin still warm from the brief rest. The air that assaults the face when one rises from the pallet is sharp, biting, and invades the lungs with its icy grasp. Picture the monks slowly pushing themselves upright, their bodies stiff with cold and nascent sleep. There are no bright lights to ease the transition, only the profound darkness of the dormitory, perhaps pierced by a sliver of moonlight filtering through a narrow window, or the faint, flickering glow of a lamp held by the custos, the monk responsible for rousing the brethren. Listen to the soft rustle of wool, the almost silent shuffle of bare or sandaled feet on the frigid stone floor. Each monk moves with a quiet, practiced grace, a testament to countless nights of this very routine. They make their way in silence, a procession of shadows, towards the church. The transition from the slightly less cold dormitory to the vast, unheated expanse of the Abbey Church is another sensory shock. The air here feels even colder, heavier, imbued with the scent of damp stone, old parchment, and the lingering ghost of beeswax from the previous day's candles. Yet, within these towering walls, a different kind of warmth begins to gather, the shared warmth of breath, of quiet devotion, of voices rising in unison. The divine office, the Opus Dei or work of God, is their central purpose, a cycle of prayer and psalmody designed to sanctify every hour of the day and night. For a long stretch, perhaps 2 or 3 hours, they stand or kneel in their choir stalls, their voices, at first raspy with sleep and cold, gradually finding strength and harmony. They sing psalms, read lessons, and offer petitions, their breath blooming like faint clouds in the chill air. The sound is meditative, a profound, ancient chant that seems to fill every corner of the vast space, comforting in its regularity. Then, when the final prayers of vigils are concluded, a blessed, albeit brief, return to the dormitory is permitted. This is when the monks might finally achieve their second sleep, a deeper, more settled rest before the bell rings again for lauds at dawn, followed shortly by prime. The luxury of truly unbroken sleep, from dusk till dawn, was a rarity, almost an indulgence, in the medieval monastic life. Their slumber was a patchwork, woven with threads of wakefulness and prayer, punctuated by the rhythmic, unyielding summons of the bell. Each time it rang, it pulled them from the comfort of oblivion, reminding them of their vows, their purpose, and their unwavering commitment to a life dedicated to God. So, for a brief time, they returned to their pallets, drawing their coarse blankets close once more. The initial shock of the cold has passed, replaced by a deep weariness that promises a quick return to sleep. The dormitory is quiet again, but it is a different quiet, a quiet imbued with the echoes of prayer, a silence that holds the memory of the bell's call and the anticipation of its next summons. This fragmented sleep, though challenging, became a familiar rhythm, a deep, ingrained pattern that cradled their bodies and spirits. It was a practice in letting go, in trusting the divine schedule, and finding a profound, quiet peace even in the face of constant interruptions to their rest. Allow yourself to settle into this deep, ancient rhythm now, feeling the gentle pull of rest as the monastery momentarily falls silent once more. As the last echoes of the Compline chant fade from the cold stone walls, and the monastic community prepares for the brief solace of a few hours' sleep, our thoughts now turn to the most immediate physical comfort, or perhaps, the lack thereof. Imagine, for a moment, the monk as he finally approaches his humble resting place. The air is still, heavy with the scent of damp stone, old wood, and the faint, earthy aroma of dried straw. The light, if any remains, is a mere whisper from a distant lamp or a sliver of moon through a high window, casting long, wavering shadows that seem to dance with the lingering chill. The very first layer against the cold, for many, was the habit itself. Picture the coarse wool, often undyed, perhaps a deep, earthy brown or grey, still wrapped around the monk's frame. This was not the smooth, soft wool of modern garments, but a rough, thick weave, designed for durability and warmth in an unforgiving environment. It might feel scratchy against the skin, especially after a long day of labor and prayer, but its weight and density offered a significant defense against the pervasive cold. Beneath this outer layer, a simple linen tunic, perhaps, would offer a modicum of softness, a thin barrier between skin and the raw, unyielding wool. Feel, if you can, the texture of these fabrics, the heavy drape of the wool, the slight crispness of the linen, the way they hold the body's meager warmth close. Now, consider the bed itself. It was no soft mattress of springs and down. Instead, the monk's bed was typically a simple wooden frame, or sometimes merely a plank or a bench, supporting a palliasse, a sack filled with straw or chaff. Listen for a moment to the soft, dry rustle of the straw as the monk settles upon it, a sound that speaks of the harvest fields and the enduring simplicity of monastic life. This straw, renewed periodically, offered a surprising degree of insulation from the cold stone floor beneath, as well as a slight cushioning, though it would compact and harden over the weeks. The faint, sweet smell of the straw might mingle with the scent of old wool and the cool, clean smell of the monastery air, creating a unique olfactory tapestry of the cloistered night. Drawing himself deeper into his rough coverings, the monk would then arrange his blankets. These, too, were most likely woven from the same coarse, unyielding wool, perhaps a single thick blanket or a layering of thinner ones. There were no elaborate quilts or down duvets in this era of austerity. Sometimes, a simple animal hide, perhaps from a sheep, might be added for extra warmth, its shaggy fleece offering a primitive, yet effective, barrier against the bitter air. Imagine the weight of these rough coverings, the way they press down, attempting to seal in every precious atom of warmth. The chill would still seep in, of course, from the gaps, from the uncovered parts of the body, a constant, subtle reminder of winter's deep breath outside the monastery walls. The pillow, if there was one at all, would also be a small sack filled with straw or chaff, offering a slight elevation for the head, but little in the way of plush comfort. As the monk lies still, enveloped by these simple, robust materials, he might pull the blanket up close, even over his head, to create a small, personal cocoon of relative warmth. The sounds of the dormitory would be hushed, perhaps the soft breathing of other sleeping brothers, the occasional shift and rustle of straw, or the distant hoot of an owl from the surrounding woods. Each movement would send a fresh wave of cold air across the skin, urging a return to stillness, to the slow, steady generation of body heat within the woolen layers. In the profound silence, the monk's awareness would sharpen to the subtle sensations, the scratch of the wool, the faint, dry scent of the straw, the persistent coolness of the air on any exposed skin. Yet, in this stark simplicity, there was also a profound sense of purpose. Every fiber of the coarse wool, every strand of the straw, served a function, designed not for luxury, but for endurance and the humble preservation of the body. There was a strength in this austerity, a quiet dignity in facing the cold night wrapped in the same materials that sustained their days. As you settle deeper into your own comfortable space, picture that ancient dormitory once more. The air is still, the heavy wool blankets are drawn tight, and the monk, having done all he can to ward off the penetrating chill, surrenders to the promise of sleep. Let the imagined weight of the coarse wool, the faint rustle of the straw, and the soft, cool air transport you to a place of profound rest, a place where simplicity itself becomes a soothing lullaby. Allow your own body to relax, sinking into your bed, feeling secure and warm, as the monk, in his humble dwelling, sought his own moment of quiet peace beneath the winter stars. As the evening deepens and the last sliver of sunlight relinquishes its hold on the ancient stones, we turn our thoughts to the very fabric of the monastery itself, the ingenious, austere architecture that stood as the first, most formidable defense against the relentless chill of a medieval winter night. Imagine, for a moment, standing before these venerable structures, their immense presence a testament to centuries of quiet endurance. Feel the cool air stirring around you, carrying the faint, earthy scent of damp stone and the distant whisper of the wind beginning its nightly patrol. The builders of these monastic havens were not seeking comfort as we understand it today, but rather shelter, permanence, and a design that echoed their vows of simplicity and hardiness. Their ingenuity lay not in lavish warmth, but in the practical, robust construction that allowed life to persist through the harshest seasons. Picture the walls that surrounded the monks, thick, immensely thick, often several feet deep, crafted from massive blocks of quarried stone. These were not merely barriers but vast thermal masses, slowly absorbing any meager warmth from the day, and just as slowly, resisting the penetrating cold of the night. Listen closely, and you might almost hear the stone itself breathing, its ancient pores holding the memory of countless sunrises and frosty sunsets. Windows, where they existed in the dormitory or cloister, were deliberately small and few. They were not designed to flood rooms with light or offer expansive views, but rather to admit just enough illumination for prayer and study, while staunchly resisting the ingress of icy drafts. Forget the clear glass panes of our modern world. Imagine, instead, the dim, softened light filtering through thin sheets of horn, or perhaps oiled linen, stretched taut across a timber frame. These rudimentary coverings blurred the sharp edges of the outside world, creating a muted, diffused glow that barely pierced the deep shadows within, yet served a vital purpose in preserving what little warmth the thick walls could retain. The sounds filtering through would be equally muffled, the distant cry of an owl, the rustle of dry leaves, softened and subdued by the heavy construction. Consider the monastery's very orientation. Often, these sacred complexes were nestled in sheltered valleys or positioned to block prevailing, bitter winds, much like a cupped hand protecting a flickering candle flame. The layout of the buildings themselves, with the cloister garth at its heart, provided a degree of sheltered passage. Though the cloister walks themselves were unheated and undeniably cold, they offered protection from direct rain and snow, a semi-enclosed sanctuary from the raw elements. Imagine traversing these stone corridors, your breath pluming in the still air, the sound of your sandals echoing softly on the worn flagstones, a tangible connection to generations of monks who walked the same path in quiet contemplation. True warmth from fire was a rare and precious commodity. The concept of central heating was centuries away. Most monasteries possessed only a single designated warming room, known as the *Calefactory star. This was a communal space, perhaps located near the dormitory or refectory, where a large, open hearth might crackle and glow, offering the monks a brief, scheduled respite from the pervasive cold. Imagine the sheer luxury of stepping into this room, the sudden embrace of dry heat on chilled skin, the comforting scent of wood smoke clinging to the heavy air, the sight of dancing flames casting flickering shadows on rough-hewn beams. It was a fleeting comfort, a brief sanctuary where hands could be thawed, and numb fingers coaxed back to life, before returning to the unheated dormitory. This single fire represented the monastery's concession to human need, a humble acknowledgement that even the most devout body required a moment of warmth to sustain its spirit. The materials themselves, the rough-hewn stone, the stout oak timbers, the heavy lead or slate roofing, all contributed to this architecture of resilience. They were chosen not for their aesthetic beauty alone, but for their strength, durability, and their inherent ability to create a robust shell against a harsh world. These buildings were monuments to practicality and spiritual fortitude, designed to endure, to protect, and to foster a life dedicated to God, even in the face of profound physical discomfort. As you allow these images to settle gently in your mind, let the stillness of these ancient structures impart a sense of quiet strength. Feel the imagined weight of the thick stone walls around you, not as a burden, but as a grounding presence. The ingenious austerity of medieval monastic architecture, though born of necessity, speaks of a profound harmony with the natural world, a deep understanding of its challenges, and a quiet determination to find peace within its embrace. There is a deep, abiding security in these old stones, a sense of enduring calm that can now envelop you, drawing you deeper into a gentle, untroubled slumber. As twilight deepened its long, blue shadows across the monastery grounds, drawing the last vestiges of warmth from the chilled air, a different kind of gentle call would echo through the stone corridors. Not the rousing clamor of a bell for prayer, but a softer summons, a signal that the day's labor was drawing to its close, and the evening's humble supper awaited. Imagine, for a moment, the quiet movement of figures, cloaked in their coarse wool habits, making their way towards the refectory. The very air around them feels crisp, invigorating, perhaps even biting, promising a deep chill once the sun has fully surrendered. You might hear the soft shuffle of leather sandals on worn flagstones, a sound that speaks of countless footsteps treading the same path over centuries. The refectory itself, much like the dormitories, would be a testament to simplicity and necessity. Stone walls, perhaps whitewashed in places, would absorb the fading light, holding onto the day's last warmth with a stubborn, silent resistance. As the monks gather, a few flickering points of light, perhaps rushlights or small tallow candles, would begin to cast long, dancing shadows, turning the familiar space into something more ancient and mysterious. The meal itself, this simple supper, was not a feast, but a deliberate act of nourishment, a preparation for the long, cold hours of the night and the fragmented slumber that lay ahead. There would be no bustling conversation, no clatter of elaborate cutlery. Instead, a profound silence would descend upon the room, broken only by the low, steady drone of a reader's voice, offering spiritual sustenance from a sacred text. Listen carefully, and you might almost discern the cadence of the Latin, a rhythmic, soothing sound that fills the quiet space, inviting contemplation even as the body is fed. Picture the long, sturdy wooden tables, smoothed by the touch of generations, upon which would be laid out the evening fare. Central to the meal would be the pottage, a thick, hearty stew, often made from oats, barley, or dried peas, enriched with whatever vegetables were available from the monastery garden, leeks, cabbages, root vegetables. Can you almost smell its earthy, warming aroma? A subtle fragrance of cooked greens and grains, perhaps a hint of wood smoke from the nearby kitchen, mingling with the damp, cool scent of ancient stone. It wouldn't be a complex flavor, but one of honest, sustaining goodness, designed to fuel the body through the demanding routine of monastic life. Beside each simple wooden or earthenware bowl, you would find a chunk of dark, dense bread, often baked fresh that day in the monastery's own ovens. Feel its rough, satisfying texture as you imagine breaking off a piece, its crust firm, its interior substantial and nourishing. This bread, often made from coarser grains like rye or barley, was the very staff of life, providing essential calories and warmth to withstand the penetrating cold. And to drink? Most likely, water drawn fresh from the well, or perhaps a weak, small ale, a common beverage in medieval times, safer than water in many places, and providing a small, fortifying measure. There would be no forks at these tables, the monks would use their fingers for the bread, and simple wooden spoons to scoop up the thick pottage. Imagine the feel of the warm bowl cradled in your hands, the gentle heat seeping into your cold fingers, offering a small, comforting antidote to the chill that always seemed to pervade the stone buildings. Each mouthful would be eaten slowly, deliberately, not just for the body's sake, but as an act of mindful presence, a quiet communion with the simple gifts provided. The food was fuel, yes, but it was also a reminder of humility, discipline, and gratitude. The quiet discipline of the meal, the steady voice of the reader, the warmth of the pottage spreading through your belly, all these elements conspired to create a moment of profound, if austere, comfort. It was a time to gather strength, not just physically, but spiritually, preparing for the deeper challenges of the night. As the last morsels were consumed, and the soft scrape of chairs signaled the meal's end, a sense of quiet contentment would settle. The day's last substantial meal, humbly received, now offered a gentle, internal warmth, a quiet blessing against the encroaching darkness and the inevitable cold that awaited in the shared dormitory. Let that feeling of simple, deep nourishment gently spread through you now, settling you deeper into a feeling of peaceful ease, ready for the quiet embrace of the medieval night. As the deep night settles over the cloister, a profound silence descends, a quiet so vast it seems to absorb all other sounds. Yet, if you listen closely, truly attuning your ears to the medieval darkness, you would find that the monastery is never entirely silent. It possesses its own nocturnal chorus, a tapestry of faint echoes woven from human devotion and the persistent breath of the ancient stone itself. Imagine, for a moment, the air within the dormitory, heavy with the scent of damp earth and the faint, clean smell of old wool. The cold is a constant presence, a soft, invisible blanket that presses against every surface. But even in this chill, there is a warmth that begins to stir, a warmth born not of fire, but of shared purpose. From the depths of this quiet, listen for the first stirrings of the monks. Perhaps a soft cough, muffled by a cowl, or the almost imperceptible creak of a wooden frame as one brother shifts in his sleep, preparing unconsciously for the approaching call to vigils. Then, piercing the stillness with a gentle, resonant certainty, comes the sound of the bell. Not the midday clang, but a softer, more intimate summons, echoing through the cold passages and into the humble cells. It is a sound that calls the soul to wakefulness, a rhythmic heartbeat in the dark. You might hear the rustle of coarse wool as monks rise from their pallets, their bare feet or simple sandals padding softly on the cold stone floor. Each movement is deliberate, practiced over countless nights, a silent ballet performed under the watchful eye of God. As they gather in the church, a new layer of sound begins to form. At first, it is just the shuffling of feet, the occasional clearing of a throat, the almost inaudible sigh of breath in the cold air. Then, one voice rises, clear and steady, beginning the chant. Soon, others join, their voices weaving together to create a rich, harmonic tapestry. This is the heart of the monastery's nighttime chorus, the Opus Dei *, the work of God, sung forth from the depths of the night. Their prayers and hymns fill the vast, dark space of the church, their collective breath visible as soft mists in the faint glow of beeswax candles, which cast dancing shadows upon the ancient walls. The sound of their chanting is unlike any music you might hear today. It is slow, deliberate, deeply resonant, carrying the weight of centuries of devotion. Each note seems to hang in the cold air, a testament to enduring faith, a gentle warmth emanating from within. Listen to the unison of their voices, the way they rise and fall, a tide of spiritual energy flowing through the sleeping monastery. It is a sound that comforts, that steadies, that speaks of an unwavering presence in a world often full of uncertainty. Even if you cannot discern the Latin words, the sheer purity and dedication in their voices are palpable, a soothing balm in the deep quiet of the pre-dawn hours. Beyond the human chorus, the monastery itself adds its own subtle notes to the night. You might hear the soft groan of ancient timbers settling in the cold, or the gentle sigh of the wind as it whispers around the corners of the stone buildings, finding its way through unseen cracks. Rain, if it falls, creates a soft, rhythmic patter on the tiled roof, a natural drumbeat accompanying the monks' prayers. Occasionally, from the distant fields beyond the cloister walls, a lone owl might hoot, its call a soft, melancholy echo in the vastness of the night, reminding you of the wild world held safely at bay. These are the quiet sounds of a medieval night, far removed from the clamor of modern life. No distant rumble of traffic, no hum of electricity, just the raw, elemental symphony of stone, wind, human breath, and devotion. The smells shift subtly with these sounds, the sharp, clean tang of cold stone, perhaps a fleeting hint of wood smoke from a distant brazier, or the earthy scent of the damp cloister garth carried on the night air. These sensory details combine to form a complete picture, inviting you deeper into this ancient sanctuary. As the final chants of vigils or lauds fade, the monks return to their dormitory, their footsteps once again soft and deliberate. The bell may toll one last time, a final, lingering note before the silence reclaims its dominion. The air grows still, the faint light of the candles diminishes, and the individual sounds disperse, melting back into the pervasive quiet. But the echoes of their collective voices linger, a gentle presence in the cold, dark corners of the monastery, a warmth held in the memory of the stone. Now, imagine settling back onto your humble pallet, the rough wool of your tunic and blanket a familiar comfort against the pervasive chill. The sounds of the night, from the soft whispers of the wind to the deep resonance of human prayer, begin to merge into a single, continuous hum. It is a soundscape of peace, of quiet endurance, and of deep spiritual rhythm. Let these ancient echoes cradle you, their steady presence a soothing lullaby, gently guiding you towards a restful and profound slumber, secure in the quiet heart of the cloister. As the year turned, and the golden hues of autumn faded into memory, the monastery braced itself for winter's deepest breath. The air grew sharp, carrying with it the undeniable scent of impending frost, a crispness that seemed to permeate the very stone of the ancient walls. Days grew noticeably shorter, drawing the cloak of night ever closer, extending the hours of darkness and amplifying the chill that settled in every corner. Imagine, for a moment, the world outside growing hushed, the distant sounds of forest creatures muted by the falling temperatures, the very earth hardening under a deepening cold. This was the season when the monk's endurance was truly tested, not merely against the chill of a single night, but against the relentless, pervasive cold that could linger for weeks, even months. Listen for a moment to the sounds of this medieval winter night. Perhaps the whisper of wind, a low, mournful sigh, threading its way through the eaves and around the sturdy bell tower. Perhaps the soft, almost imperceptible brush of snowflakes beginning their descent, first a scattering, then a gentle, continuous drift that would soon blanket the courtyard and the fields beyond in a pristine, muffling white. In the deep quiet of the cloister, these subtle sounds would take on an amplified presence, each rustle, each creak of aged timber, a small punctuation in the vast stillness. The dim light of the moon, when it pierced through the clouds, would cast long, stark shadows, painting the familiar architecture in shades of silver and deep indigo, lending an almost ethereal quality to the stark reality of the cold. Inside the dormitory, where the stone walls absorbed the penetrating chill of the season, the air itself felt heavy with cold. You might detect the faint, earthy scent of damp stone, mingled with the clean, sharp aroma of frozen air that inevitably found its way through any small crevice or unglazed window opening. The texture of everything seemed to sharpen, the rough wool of the habit, the cold smoothness of the bed board beneath the thin mattress of straw, the icy touch of the water in the ablution basin when morning came. This was a cold that settled deep into the bones, a constant companion that required a profound inner strength to simply rise and go about the day's duties. Consider the monk's body, attuned to these harsh rhythms. Waking in the profound darkness before matins, the act of simply pushing aside the coarse woolen blanket and swinging one's legs out of bed was an exercise in quiet discipline. The cold, unyielding floor would meet bare feet with an immediate, bracing shock, urging the body to move, to seek the small warmth of motion. Breath would plume in the frigid air of the dormitory, a visible testament to the biting chill. There was no escaping it, no modern comfort to ward off the omnipresent cold. Each movement, each prayer, each step through the unheated corridors became a small act of fortitude, a quiet testament to their chosen path. Yet, this enduring hardship was not viewed as a mere affliction, but often as a profound teacher. The physical discomfort of winter deepened the spiritual practice, stripping away distractions and focusing the mind on what truly mattered. The cold became a companion in contemplation, a constant reminder of the transient nature of earthly comforts and the enduring strength of the spirit. It fostered a deep sense of resilience, a quiet acceptance of the natural world's cycles, and a profound connection to the rhythm of the seasons as ordained by a higher power. It was a time for inward turning, for a deeper meditation on faith, and for quiet perseverance. The daily chores, already demanding, took on an added layer of difficulty in winter. Drawing water from the well, even if it hadn't frozen solid, would mean hands numbing quickly in the icy air. Carrying firewood for the communal hearth in the warming room, or for the kitchen, became a heavier task when the ground was slick with ice or buried under snow. Even the simple act of writing in the scriptorium, where perhaps a small brazier might offer a meager warmth, would find fingers stiff and ink threatening to freeze. Yet, these tasks were carried out with the same quiet dedication, the monks moving through their days with a steadfast rhythm, each breath a cloud, each step a testament to their enduring spirit. As the long winter night wore on, the monastery settled into its deepest quiet. The wind, if it blew, might sigh softly around the ancient stones, a lullaby of the wild world outside. Inside, the only sounds would be the gentle creak of timbers shifting with the cold, the soft, regular breathing of the sleeping brothers, or the rustle of a turning body. It was a stillness so profound that it seemed to hold the very essence of the earth's slumber, a deep, restorative quietude that embraced the hardship and transformed it into a unique, almost sacred peace. Let the image of this quiet, enduring monastery, blanketed in snow and steeped in the profound stillness of a medieval winter night, settle gently into your mind. Feel the profound calm that comes from such deep quiet, such steady perseverance. Allow the gentle hum of enduring life, even in the harshest of seasons, to guide you deeper into your own peaceful rest. The night is long, and the quiet deepens, inviting you into a soothing, undisturbed sleep. The pervasive chill, a constant companion in these ancient stones, often seemed to seep into the very marrow of one's bones, clinging to the heavy wool of the habit, finding its way beneath the coarse blankets. Yet, for the medieval monk, accustomed to the stark realities of his chosen path, there existed another realm, a sanctuary not built of timber and stone, but forged within the quiet depths of the human spirit. This was the inner sanctum, a place where the biting cold of the world outside could be met, and sometimes even transcended, by a profound and enduring warmth. Imagine, for a moment, the hushed hours between the office of matins and lauds, when the monastery falls into a deeper, though never absolute, silence. The communal dormitory, perhaps, is still, the brothers, having briefly stirred for prayer, now seek what precious moments of sleep they can find. But one figure might remain awake, not restless, but still, perhaps seated on the edge of his simple cot, or kneeling by a narrow window that offers only the faintest glimpse of the moonlit courtyard. The air is frigid, carrying the faint, earthy scent of damp stone and old wood, perhaps a lingering wisp of smoke from a distant brazier. Yet, within this stillness, a different kind of warmth begins to unfurl. Listen for a moment to the rhythm of his breath, slow, deliberate, a gentle counterpoint to the quiet creaks and groans of the ancient building settling around him. His hands, though perhaps calloused from labor, are now clasped loosely, or perhaps resting gently on the worn pages of a psalter, its vellum cool to the touch. The words within are not merely ink on parchment, they are a lifeline, a conduit to a spiritual warmth that defies the physical cold. Each phrase, each psalm, is a small ember, carefully tended, building a quiet fire within the heart. This isn't a warmth that radiates from a hearth, but rather one that emanates from an unwavering focus, a deep immersion in faith. The mind, no longer distracted by the day's tasks or the body's discomforts, turns inward, seeking solace in contemplation. Think of it as a quiet, internal vigil, where the spirit holds watch even as the body yearns for rest. The monk may recall scripture, meditate on the mysteries of his faith, or simply offer silent prayers of devotion. In this profound engagement, the external world, with its icy grip, begins to recede. The chill of the dormitory, the hard surface of the stone floor, the sparse comfort of the bedding, these sensations become distant, softened, as the inner landscape of the soul takes precedence. The light, too, in this inner sanctum, is not the harsh glare of day, but something softer, more enduring. Perhaps it is the memory of a single candle flame, seen earlier in the chapel during matins, its tiny dance against the vast darkness a potent symbol. Or perhaps it is simply the light of understanding, a quiet illumination that comes from deep reflection. The very act of focusing the mind, of directing one's thoughts towards the divine, generates a kind of mental warmth, a peaceful glow that can permeate the entire being. It is a profound stillness, a deliberate cultivation of inner peace that becomes a shield against the most penetrating cold. The textures around him, too, take on a different quality. The rough wool of his habit, initially a barrier against the cold, now feels like a familiar embrace, a part of his chosen discipline. The smoothness of the polished wood of a prayer bead, or the coolness of the stone wall against his cheek during a moment of profound contemplation, are not sources of discomfort, but anchors, grounding him in the present moment, in the physical reality of his spiritual journey. Even the scent of the monastery, that unique blend of old stone, faint incense, beeswax, and perhaps the faint, clean smell of freshly laundered linen, becomes a part of this profound inner experience, a familiar aroma of sanctuary. This spiritual warmth is not merely an absence of cold, it is an active presence, a deep wellspring of resilience. It is the understanding that even in the darkest, coldest hours, there is a constant, unwavering light within. This is where the monk finds his true refuge, his ultimate protection against the hardships of the world. It is the quiet strength that allows him to rise again for the next call to prayer, to face another day of labor and devotion, sustained by something far more enduring than physical comfort. And as you listen, imagine drawing upon your own inner sanctuary. Feel the gentle warmth of your own breath, the steady beat of your own heart. Allow your mind to settle, to find that quiet, peaceful place within you, where worries and external discomforts can gently recede. Let the idea of this inner warmth, cultivated through quiet focus and deep peace, envelop you now. It is a warmth that asks nothing of the outside world, but simply exists, a steady glow that prepares you for the most profound and restorative sleep. This inner stillness, this quiet comfort, is your own constant companion, a blessing that remains, even as you drift deeper into the gentle embrace of rest. The final bell has rung, its deep, resonant voice slowly fading into the profound stillness that follows the pre-dawn vigil. The last echoes of chanted psalms, those ancient, comforting melodies that wove through the cold, dark hours, now recede, leaving behind a silence that feels almost palpable, a thick, soft blanket settling over the monastery. Imagine, if you will, the soft shuffle of sandaled feet along the cold stone corridors, a gentle procession of shadows returning to the dormitory. The faint, flickering light of a tallow candle, carried by the night watchman, might briefly illuminate a monk's bowed head, casting fleeting silhouettes onto the rough-hewn walls, before plunging the passage back into the deep, welcoming dark. You are returning to your simple bed, your pallet of straw and coarse wool, not for another fragmented hour of uneasy slumber, but for a stretch of true, earned rest. Feel the cool air against your face as you move, a lingering testament to the night's chill, but also sense the quiet relief, the easing of the shoulders, the sigh that you hold back but feel deep within your bones. The long hours of standing, kneeling, and chanting in the unheated church have taken their toll, and now, at last, comes the blessing of stillness. As you reach your designated place, a spot that has been yours for years, worn smooth by countless nights, allow your body to gently guide you down. The straw palace rustles softly as you settle upon it, a sound that, by now, is as familiar and comforting as your own breath. The coarse wool blanket, which has served as your sole defense against the relentless cold, feels surprisingly soft now, yielding to the warmth of your body as you draw it up closer, tucking it in around your shoulders. You might still be wearing your tunic, perhaps even your scapula, those layers offering a final, humble buffer against the chill that perpetually seeps from the ancient stones. Listen for a moment to the profound quiet that has descended upon the dormitory. The collective breathing of your brethren, a soft, rhythmic chorus of sighs and gentle inhalations, becomes a soothing lullaby. There is no urgency here, no immediate call to prayer or labor. This is the monastery's deepest, most introspective hour, a time when the world outside has not yet stirred, and even the internal rhythms of the community have temporarily hushed. The faint, almost imperceptible shift in the quality of the darkness is the only harbinger of the approaching dawn. Through the narrow, unglazed windows, a smudge of grey might appear, a mere suggestion against the inky black, hinting at the vast, star-strewn sky beyond. But within the dormitory, the darkness remains profound, a haven from the nascent light, inviting the mind to finally let go. Your thoughts, which moments ago might have been filled with the resonant words of a psalm, or the quiet contemplation of a spiritual passage, now begin to drift, to soften, to untangle themselves from the disciplined focus of prayer. Imagine the subtle warmth that begins to build beneath your coarse blanket, a tiny pocket of comfort created by your own body heat, held close by the thick weave of the wool. It's a humble warmth, but in the pervasive cold of the medieval monastery, it feels like a profound luxury, a small, personal sanctuary against the biting air that still clings to the stone walls. The scent of old stone, of beeswax from extinguished candles, and perhaps a faint, earthy aroma from the straw, mingles into a unique perfume of monastic repose. It is a scent of endurance, of simple living, and of deep, abiding peace. This is the gift of the hours before true dawn, a precious interlude of uninterrupted sleep that the monks cherished above all. After the constant interruptions, the bells that punctuate the deep night, the demanding vigils in the freezing chapel, this window of rest is a quiet blessing, a time to truly sink into the depths of slumber. Your body, weary from the day's labors and the night's spiritual exertions, gratefully accepts this reprieve. The tension in your muscles begins to melt away, your breathing deepens, becoming slower, more even. The world outside, with its looming responsibilities and its relentless march towards the sun, feels distant, irrelevant. Here, within the thick embrace of the dormitory walls, within the simple comfort of your palate, there is only this moment of profound peace. The monastery sleeps now, a great, ancient heart beating softly in the pre-dawn hush. The wind may whistle faintly around the eaves, a distant owl might offer a final hoot, but these sounds only serve to deepen the sense of inner quiet, of being safely tucked away from the world's clamor. This is not the luxurious warmth of a modern bed, nor the soft embrace of fine linens, but it is a warmth born of resilience, of faith, and of the profound satisfaction of a day and night lived with purpose. It is a humble comfort, deeply earned, deeply felt. Allow yourself to drift now, carried by the gentle rhythm of the monastery's slumber. Feel the profound quiet settle around you, a soft, warm blanket for your mind. Let every lingering thought dissolve, every small concern dissipate. Sink deeper into the quietude, into the dark, into the peace. Rest now. Your journey is complete. Sleep now. Let go of everything. Sleep now.